Good evening, everyone. Welcome and hope everyone is doing well. Today, Masa is proud to present the 18th Malaysian Architecture Education Online Lecture Series. This is our 18th lecture so far, and thank you for joining us. So, Masa stands for Malaysia Architecture Student Alliance and is a non-profit student committee 18th directly under PAM, which is the Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia, consisting of students represented from all architecture institutes in Malaysia. During the time of MCO, Masa and PAM have decided to launch this online lecture series for students to be more productive and gain more insight. Architect Agenda is the head of PAM Education, and Dr. 𝐁𝐞𝐞 is the convener. There will be more series coming up after this one, so to keep in touch with Masa Instagram and Facebook page. My name is Jason, a Master representative from UCSI University, and I will be your MC for tonight. I would like to introduce our guest speaker for today, Ar.Bee Eu, an academician at University Science Malaysia. Ar.Bee Eu teaches architectural studio, professional practice, and principles of design in architecture. Her areas of expertise are adaptive reuse, high-rise design, urban design planning, and figure ground studies. Prior to teaching, she had accumulated a total 14 years of consultancy experience, with 6 years of a diverse portfolio of concept works in Singapore, Dubai, Shanghai, Beijing, Jakarta, Maldives, and another 8 years of completing 8 high-rise projects of 38 to 60-story commercial developments in KLCC and Penang. In 2019, she won PAM Awards Gold in Alteration and Addition Category for the design of Penang Digital Library. She is also the current Penang City organizer of PechaKucha Penang, which is a global network event originated from Tokyo. And from 2015 to 2016, she was PAM Northern Chapter Core Chairman Education and Organizing Chairman of World Architecture Day Penang. So enjoy and relax, everybody. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the talk. If you have any question, feel free to type them down in the chat box, so we can attend to them during the Q&A session. Without further ado, let's welcome Ar.Bee Eu. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, everyone at Masa, the committee. I think hi to every one of you who have done a good job at this. And also Selamat Hari Raya Haji to our Muslim friends, our students, and also those enjoying long break. Today, I'm just going to talk about innovative architecture. I'll share a little bit on case study on Penang Digital Library, but before that, I'll also give you tips and a rough idea of how to be a bit more innovative in your design. So I'm going to start my sharing this evening with this first slide. I joined USC Science Malaysia in 2016, and at that point I was already in the industry working for 16 years, like what Jason said earlier. And it's refreshing to come back, and USM is my former university, so it's my alma mater. So it's great to be back, kind of like contributing, giving back to the UC who made me who I am today. So this is my students, me and my students with our fellow studio masters. We took this one of the studio days. We took all of them to Digital Library to have our studio outside the classroom. And I'm just going to come back to that later. I just want to show all the students here, just get to know my background a little bit. So in USM, we want to make our studio sessions a bit more alive, rather than a very formal, teacher and student kind of crit session. So we organize a lot of trips. We organize a lot of study trips overseas. So what you see here is on the left is RSP. So last year we took all our studio students to Singapore, and I brought them back to visit my former office and my former colleagues. Those days we are like partnership, but they're now directors in RSP. So they gave us a good session, a good sharing on Jewel International Airport, Singapore. So this is also a little bit of an insight of how our studio session runs in USM. We run twice a week. I'm sure it's the same for Jason and the rest. And I also teach professional practice. So for tonight's this evening sharing about innovative architecture, before I jump into being innovative, I just want to pause and let everybody take a good understanding of creativity versus innovation. Okay, some students tend to imagine they are more or less the same, but you need to know, very important is, creativity is thinking of new ideas, new things, is generating ideas that has not been thought of, have not been attempted before. Whereas innovation is doing new things, is converting those ideas, those creative spark ideas that you have, into an actual input. Okay, so many times when we have we interview students or postgraduate master students, then I will always ask, what do you think is most important traits for an architect to have? So of course, easy. Architects are creative, right? And if you're not creative, you need to be creative to be architect. But for this evening, I have to say that I think architects must be creative. Architects must be innovative. You know why? Because in the construction industry, if architects are not creative, then who will be the one coming up with those creative ideas, right? So ask why before how. So before I tell you about how to be innovative, I just want to talk about why is it so important now to talk about why do we need to be innovative? Okay, is creativity not enough to be an architect? Why is it that innovation is critical now for us practicing in architecture? So this illustration, probably a lot of you have seen during our MCO COVID. This photo, this illustration went viral. So there is more than one curve to flatten. Many parts of the world may be still fighting COVID-19, and we are quite fortunate that it's under control in Malaysia. There's more things coming after COVID-19, recession, climate change, climate crisis. So as architects, even though you guys are still studying, students, this is something very real, very relevant that all of you need to be aware of, right? And climate crisis, you talk about global warming, long weeks of no rain, droughts, rising sea water level. So all this you can read up, and no matter what, you can't ignore of this climate crisis. Okay, and this particular statistic is interesting for everyone to know, because again, you are an architect, leader of the consultant and construction industry. So 39% of annual global CO2 emission are generated from buildings. Okay, 39% of the global. And out of that 39, 11% comes from building materials and construction activity, and 28% comes from building operations. So, like it or not, we as architects, we need to be really fully aware of this scenario. And experts have projected that by 2060, the global population will grow grow to an extent where we will need to build, more than twice of what we have existing on Earth. So, with construction going non-stop and with population growing, so all this is gonna, add on pressure, exert pressure to, the global Earth now. And so, which is why I wanted to relate to that scenario and let everybody understand that that is why at this point of time, architecture is not just about pretty picture. Okay, it's not about doing that masterpiece, not purely an aesthetic activity. So, which is why a lot of schools are talking about, innovative thinking as a key to drive change or paradigm. So, and this is what I want to share this evening. So, we've covered why, and now I'm just going to share then how do we really go into this whole innovation thing. How do you start to even want to innovate? And I'm going to share with you this whole concept of design thinking. Design thinking as a strategy for innovation. Many of students don't realize we imagine that design is just draw up some ideas, but there's a whole sense of there's whole flow of it. There's whole different mindset thinking style that you should be aware of and practice it all the time. So design thinking, it's like a mindset that you have to put on, right? And there's 4 steps that I have laid out here. We call it the design thinking approach, right? Like it or not, sometimes you have done part of it, sometimes you have done the other part of it. So 4 steps here, guys. Number 1 is always empathize with the user. Okay, this is step number 1 in this whole 4 stage of design approach. Okay, how to be innovative, how to always come up with innovative ideas. So empathize with the user. You need to know in any brief that's given, step 1, always ask yourself, who is the user? Is it a kindergarten for young children? Is it a private bungalow for a single family? Or is it for the elderly or for the wheelchair user? Okay, and as architects, we come across different brief, different programs, and you would be seeing different kind of user background. Are you trying to address drivers need car parking, basement, or you are doing a gym design, health center? Then you have to think of what the user wants, what the user needs. Okay, that's very important. Empathy, and you literally have to put yourself in the shoes of the user of your design. Okay, whether it's for one person, for a family of 3, or for a group of students for kindergarten, or to thousands, hundreds and thousands of users in a stadium, right? And all these demand different consideration, different thinking, which is why architecture can be so complex, but at the same time, I feel it can be very exciting and challenging as well. So step 2, guys, step 2 is once you kind of like put yourself into the user's shoes, you understand what the user wants, then you look at the problem. You need to define the problem, analyze your observation, and then come up with a problem statement. Again, it can be a hawker center, so what is the problem that you are looking at? What do you see? What do you smell, right? Or you're looking at housing area where there's a lot of elderly groups living there, but there's no proper wheelchair access or steps that are not suitable for elderly. Okay, so define your problem. And it can be also, for example, like very dark rooms. And in adaptive reuse, a lot of times you want to rescue old buildings, and you need to kind of like open up your eyes and see what's lacking, what's the problem. The rooms are too dark, there's no ventilation, or the buildings are in disrepair. So 2, is define your problem. So then number 3 is ideate solution. And this is when, after you have done your user empathy, you've done your problem statement, then you start to find ideas, identify solutions. So how can we, what are the ideas that you can solve the problem that you have identified? Okay, think out of the box. Yeah? And this photo shows is like a parking day where community take over the car park space in the city and then turn it into a green space that they can use. And this is one way. Architects need to start to think that, okay, crazy ideas, why not ideas, okay? And think out of the box. So, and you'll be surprised how, wonderful your solutions can be if you start to push the boundary, okay? And in this ideation phase, important is you just have to kind of like lower your judgment, avoid judging that, oh, this is crazy, this silly idea, it won't work. Just keep it going when you are, say, doing brainstorming, and then aim for quality, aim for quality ideas, and then encourage wow solutions. So that's how you kind of like get excited during the idea stage. And I'll move to number 4. So number 4, we call it the prototype and test. All of you know this. Architecture studio will always have model making components, but maybe some of you may not realize that model making is actually part of the whole design thinking, from empathy, problem solving, having an idea. I have this idea of a high rise going this way, and then model making, which is why I'm sure your lecturers will always stress model making is very important. You need to try, you need to test out, because it is, one of the very critical stage to test your idea. So we call it prototype, make models, mock-up, 3D printing. These days, so many options for you guys to pick from. And this slide shows some of the models done by my students. This is one of a very early program. I think we wanted students to kind of have a warming up of model making, and also design a pavilion to play with light and shadow. So the final outcome, they came up with these models. And what you didn't see is, we actually test it under the sun. Some of them managed to test it under the sun. Some we just use a handphone torch and test it, and then take photo and kind of like study the patterns generated by the design that they've done. So this simple exercise is to really train all of you here, architecture students, to strengthen your design thinking. Okay, so take a good look again. Step 1, 2, 3, 4. That whole design process. Now, sometimes 1, 2, 3, 4, you can always jump back. Sometimes at number 3, you can go back to work on the empathy of the user, and sometimes you can come back to problem. So it's not a linear process. Okay, just know that this is not a linear process. And I'm sure you guys will have found out sometimes when you do model mock-up, and you realize whatever solution that you've done doesn't work out, and you have to go back again. Okay, so just know that this is a live back and forth process. So at this point, students must remember that design mindset is not just problem solving. Okay, sometimes you hear that, oh, it's about problem solving, workshop and all that, but being innovative, you don't just stop at solving problem. You have to look at, as something focused on solution and action oriented. You have to analyze, it's a good hybrid of analysis and imagination. Okay, and after I've kind of like showed you guys the theory, okay, how to do innovative thinking, I'm just going to show you practical application. Now this is examples around the globe, okay, innovation examples in architecture. And everyone knows Dr. 𝐁𝐞𝐞 𝐄𝐮. Well, he's our master architect. Well, he is the one who championed bioclimatic skyscraper, and that's one of the greatest thing that we are proud of him, that he started to question, when you build high rise, why not bring the green, the trees coming up along with the high rise. And from Ken's pursuit, I think it has got a global following. And you can see this project in Milan. Of course, you know, they even brought the whole idea and tested it. This is built, so you can check it out in Google. And another example of innovation, this is BIG. And this is, probably some of you have seen this. This is a waste energy plant. It recycles rubbish waste into energy in Copenhagen. And this is a competition entry. This is built, and this is real photos. So at the rooftop, I think BIG designed a ski slope for users. So it's like a ski resort. And again, all this unique brief would not happen if the architects are not being innovative, pushing the boundary and keep asking why not and why can't we do this. So this is a great example. And innovation in architecture can be seen here. A shipping container. It's like a farm, like a farm in a shipping container. And we know about shipping container being used for pavilions, for building, but this guy here, Stuart Oda, is a Beijing-based entrepreneur. So he took it to another level, creating farming in containers, right? And then innovation can come in the form of material usage. We are so used to concrete. We're used to concrete and steel, and Vautrongya architects attempted to use bamboo. So this is one example of innovation in design. You know, you don't always have to use the same thing. So he explored beautifully on bamboo in the restaurant. Then again, example of innovative use in construction, paper. So Shigeru Ban used paper. This is one of his most iconic house, paper house. I think some of you would know. And this is an example of how creativity and innovative in architecture can produce such never thought of, unexpected outcome, right? And at this point, I want all of you to just pause and just remember, whenever you're doing design, whether you're working now or whether you're still going back to studio, just tell yourself that there's a better way. There's always a better way to do it. And our task, our mission is to find it. This is what I tell my students. So just have that drive, dare to try and just keep looking for a better solution. And with all that talk about theory, global example, so then I'll move to what we wanted to talk mainly today is, how Penang Digital Library, Library in the Park is like an example of how a unique brief, and how innovative thinking can surprise with an unexpected outcome. So the story starts with this. The client, Penang State Government, felt that conventional library has some drawbacks, right? And if you pay attention closely, when I go through the whole journey of Penang Digital Library, we tie back to our 4 stage of innovative thinking, the design thinking mindset. So at this point, this is almost like a problem statement. The user, the client wanted to provide the user a good facility to meet, to study, to do the homework, students to do a homework. So they were looking at a library, a building, physical library. But then they realize physical library starts to have issues. You need a lot of space to store books and books and books, bookshelves and bookshelves. And then there are those back of the house spaces that most of library users don't see. The archives, catalogs, the long stories. So, and all these take up more space, more maintenance, and physical space is valuable, right? And another kind of like a disadvantage or issue with conventional library is manpower. So typical library, if you guys remember your physical library, you need manpower to arrange the books, catalog them, and then label them. And if you have new books, then you have librarians to sort that out. And then when you want to borrow, you need a librarian at the counter to check in, check out, and manage late payment, return books. So again, then it comes up with a lot of manpower. So you have physical space. You need a lot of physical space for books, and then need manpower to run a conventional library. So the idea came, so the client had this kind of like a light bulb idea, say, okay, why not we do library without books? And meaning going paperless, and you will instantly remove that whole requirement on space. Okay, up to probably 60% of library space are always given up to bookshelves, right? And imagine if you free up that 60% of bookshelf space in a conventional library and then open it up for seating capacity. So, that would be really wonderful. So that whole idea now is library without books. It's a physical building, but no books. So many will really, some find it hard to imagine. What do you do in a library that don't have books, right? And of course, the whole kind of like a innovative thinking now is, what if you can do all this borrowing, returning books, but without physical transaction, all done online, on cloud, on web-based, So the idea is to have ebooks. You can borrow ebooks and then return them, and that's that core idea of library without books, which is why it's called digital library. Yeah, and this is the first time is kind of like I wouldn't say tested, but it's like a first public building, physical building, purpose built for a library without books. So it's quite daunting because no one has done it before, and no one knew what goes in a digital library. So the architect had to take ideas along the way, go to site. This is the original site, 1 acre compound with a small 2-story bungalow, and the lawn is beautiful, fully shaded. I can show you here. And this is during morning, and those mature trees are probably 150 years old, and they cast an amazing shade throughout the day. In fact, probably to be exact, from morning as the sunrise, because the sunrise behind the tall trees, so it's shaded most of the site till at least noon. And all this is where we talk about like an observation. Okay, this is the stage before we decide what to design. So we know that we want library without books, but how would this building look like, and how would this building respond to a site like this? Okay, and so the idea that the architect has, this is even before building design comes about. So the one idea that is, okay, I know this is going to be library without books, but that great notion of library in the park, meaning you can read in the park, you can read outside, you can merge nature, you can read by the window, you can always look out, do your work by the window, and then when you look out, there's trees at the window, embracing you. So that is that main idea, library in the park meets library without books. Okay, and this is the kind of like a thinking process, that what are the components that you have on site. One existing building, okay, and a very spacious empty lawn. So what do you do, and the brief calls for reading spaces, discussion rooms, meeting rooms, children rooms, and a hall that can be broken into function rooms. So once the architect has kind of like mapped out all those space components, and then tie back to the whole idea of library in the park, and this moves on to the stage of moving idea to prototype. So the general idea is, have blocks stacked with them, and the blocks are like, you mimic books in a way. So the massing, many do not know that, it's a simple rotation of two linear blocks, like a wafer slab, okay? And prototype, remember what we spoke about, prototype, and models were done. So the architect did models to study the idea. Okay, this whole massing thing, and it's supposed to catch the morning sun. If you can see right on the right portion of the model, where the model trees are shown casting the shade. Now, this model was placed on site in the actual direction of the north. You can see on the model, north is facing, a little bit top, like 11 o'clock. And all this experimentation, there was an idea in the office, in the lab, thought of, okay, we want to catch the morning sun, but we have to test it. We have to build a model. You could easily do it in SketchUp or rendering software like Lumia, but architect here chose to bring the model to site and watch and observe. So it was carefully studied, and the library has the old building, and then on the right hand side is the new building. So if you look at it, the shadow patterns is already predicted. Like, okay, the Wisdom Street behind the existing mansion is going to be shaded during the day and even in the evening, because the sun goes the other side, and the shade of the roof helps to cool down the space. So at this point, architects still at this modeling stage. You test your idea, you keep testing before it goes to construction, and not just with physical model, test with 3D, right? And 3D drawn to scale, to detail, and to kind of like make sure the proportion looks right, and is this really what is going to be built? So why I share this step by step is architecture can be really tedious process in real life. It's not just about drawing 3D, pass it to contractor, and then they build it. There's a lot of, if you want to do it well, you need to really be very articulated. So I show you again before and after, and the proportions, the angles, everything is pre-calculated in 3D, and when it's built, it comes out exactly what the architect had in mind. So first, I'm not going to talk about adaptive reuse strategies and all that, but this is a merging of old and new, and a very strong, careful planning of response to site. To the trees on the right, those are tall trees. You guys have not been to, I'm not sure if you guys have been to Penang, but now you cannot travel yet. So when you see this place in person, come in the morning from 8 to before 11. The lawn is shaded. So thinking was, celebrate the shade. You don't need trees, but that's the beauty of how you play with buildings and nature. So, and the moment we took out physical books from your conventional library, usually we tend to be a bit careful. You can't just blast sunlight into your books. Those books can't survive long. And then what you get is a lot of artificial lighting in the conventional library. But the moment the library is without books, library without books, and this is great. It's liberating, because now we can open up, bring natural sun coming in, and this simple decision is in a very passive innovation of managing energy usage. So during the day, if you come during the day, all these spaces do not need the artificial lights. Those lights in the ceilings, they only come up in the probably from 5-ish to 6, or 6 to the evening. So what's great then is, it's naturally lit. You save energy, you save electricity by not using all these unnecessary lights. You use what is free, natural sunlight. So This is part of the new annex. There's a long linear skylight. Again, carefully positioned so that it kind of like lights up the meeting room and it lights up the reading space. So what you see here on the right hand side is inside the meeting room. Those words say dream, and then the other photo on the left is from the reading room looking to the bay windows. And moving to outside, so this is the lawn and the left shot shows I think this is about 9 a.m. 9 in the morning. So again, the shadows appear and it casts these beautiful dancing shadows. And again, this is not a coincidence. This was pre-calculated because the experimentation using model, the prototyping, and it was a lot of tests to ensure that this is what is going to happen. So remember the models that the architect brought to site. Yeah, it's already can be foreseen that this scenario is going to happen. And photo on the right again shows you the elegance of the lawn, and it will never be the same. You never get two photos of the same because the shadows on different day of different time and different cloud, different weather. So I think what is great is what you see now is a really live, moving, natural facade expression. And even the glazing, if you look closely, the Penang Digital Library behind the glazing, it reflects back the whole row of trees facing the library. And again, that kind of canvas change according to the weather. Cloudy days, then you see clouds reflected on them. So it is a multi-layered kind of a tribute to the site. Okay, jump into the interiors. That's a good look of how the skylight runs through the entire linear space. And what you can see at the bottom of photo is a void. And these are simple strokes, simple strategy to open up so that the lighting from the skylight can transfer down to the ground floor. And so when you enter, you will really see the natural light coming in. Okay, and this is how shadow, again, how architecture details play with natural sunlight and shade and shadow. Okay, and the designers make sure there are inspiring words on the meeting rooms. You know, we have dream, think, and then create. So there's 3 meeting rooms. So every meeting room has an inspiring word. So again, this did not come in accidental outcome. It was studied tremendously, was tested in micro detail and tested whether the shade will come out right. And even the distance of the louvers, guys, you look at the photo on the right, the blades, distance of the blades, the permutations was done, whether it's 200 mm distance, whether it's 150, whether it's 125, whether it's 75, whether it's 100, it was tested. And then if you understand how shadows work, the depth of the blades also make a difference. And so what you see, the eventual outcome comes after a long test in the studio of studying the outcome. So this is another shot. If you go out at the perimeter of the hall, there's this vertical louvers lining at the corridor. And again, the whole movement of sun in the morning and afternoon creates this whole shadow patterns. As architects, I don't know about you guys, but I will pay attention on how shadow cast on buildings. There's something poetic about them. And again, this particular spot, I used to go often and observe at 5 p.m., at 2 p.m., and it's always never the same. And friends will go and they'll tell me how it behaves on different days. Okay, and one of the thinking of opening up to the window during the idea stage. It kind of like completes the whole experience of a digital library, where you go in, left and right, you can see outdoors coming in. And this is part of the key to calming down the mind. You know, you become really more relaxed in a space where you can look out. Okay. And this is one of the photos that we took after the study trip with my students. Of course, we went in the morning, and I think sometimes no matter how much you explain to students in sketches, in a video about how to design with natural light, you know, all your section studies, no matter how much you tell them, it works so much differently when I show them. So I brought my 50 students there, and the moment they feel it, the moment they see it, you know, instantly I don't have to explain. So the studio that day was really exciting. You know, a lot of them felt like when they had some idea block, there's no idea inspiration. When they went, instantly the concepts came out, you know, really fast, and I don't have to explain. They could feel it, and they finally clicked that this is how you design with natural light. It's not rocket science. It's really not that difficult. Okay, you just need to empathize and need to understand. And I'm almost done. And so the few important things to remind ourselves here is, as a designer, as an architect, you guys are going to be an architect in the future. Always be curious. You know, be curious as a child. You know, like a child, I have 3 kids, and they ask me all kind of curious questions, and those questions come from really honest curiosity. Don't be afraid. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel like you ask silly questions. So whenever you come across a new brief or something that you have not done before, just go through the whole range of questions. Who is this for? You know, when do you need such a building, and where? You know, how? You know, why? You know, what? So do that, and you will find that actually, you know, you can solve this whole unique problem that is being given to you. Okay. And as students, I really must encourage all of you to kind of like have this pride in you, that you must push for, you know, 100% original idea, and not just rely on ideas from Pinterest, Google. You know, sometimes you have weeks that you can't decide what concept you want to come up with, right? And then you just go soak in all the images that you have from Google, and then you just wish one will click and pick up as a concept. But if you try to you know, adapt that whole design approach that I shared just now, and then combine it with that curiosity. You have to have a clean slate of thinking, you know, that free of judgment, and just ask yourself, well, why can't we do this? Why we have never done this? Why is it always the same? Why no one has thought of this? So think of new ideas. You know, don't be a parrot. Don't just study, you know, international architects and pick award-winning styles and trend, and then recycle it, do a big twist here and there, and then present it to your studio or master. So challenge the norm, right? Ask questions. And I think what's important that I want to impart to you all students here, that as young architects, you need to be really, you know, dare to dream, think big, you know, aim to change the world. These are big statements, yeah. When I tell my students, either architecture students or students who are doing design, I always tell them, you know, whatever you do, ask yourself, you know, is your design, is your research going to make, going to improve the way things work? Is your work going to change the world? And if not, then maybe you're not thinking hard enough. You know, you should at least try in the smallest way, because that's what architects are meant to be, and we can, if you really put your mind to it, to make, you know, the world a better place lah, like what the song says, right? So this is my final slide, Jason. I'm going to end with this message of, dare to dream, dare to innovate. And I hope my 60 slides give you guys a good inspiration for your next project. Okay, thank you, Jason. Back to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Architect Bill. And once again, apologize on the technical issue earlier and the inconvenience caused to our speaker Ar.Bee Eu and our fellow participants. We hope everyone enjoyed it and gained many insight from the sharing sessions. So now move forward to Q&A sessions. And Architect Bill, we got some questions for you from the audience. The first question is from Vinci. Hi, Ar.Bee Eu. I'm Vinci from UCSI University. How do you get junior inspiration for your design and innovation? Do you sketch it out of your ideas?
Okay, that's one of the interesting questions that students always wants to know, right? How do you get ideas? The best part is ideas come to you at the most unexpected place. So, Vinci, if the next time you get stuck with, I've got no idea how to present my kindergarten, so you should just go out there, maybe go for a jog, go do some grocery shopping, go for a drive. And the ideas that come to me are most of the time, never in office, never in school, it's always outside. So because once your mind has no restriction, that's when the freshest idea and inspiration will come. Does that answer your question, Vinci? Jason, back to you.
I think she is understand. I think you answer her question. So the next question is from 𝐿𝐿 𝐄𝐮. Hi, Ar.Bee Eu. May I know how do you develop an innovative and fun ideas?
So fun ideas is always, like I said earlier in the earlier slide, that you need to always be asking questions, and always one way sometimes is I will encourage my students to study the norm. For example, if they are designing a shopping mall, then they should just study what is the norm, what is the usual way that the shopping malls are done. The atrium, and then 2 anchor tenants on left and right, and then a cinema, and you walk around, in a donut, or that's it. So once you study the convention, and then you ask yourself, why is it always this way? Why can't it be the other way? Why can't you have a forest in a shopping mall? Why can't you have natural ventilated shopping mall? Now with post-COVID, the best place is to be in a natural ventilated environment, movement on air and all that. So from there, you just start to be curious, or like I said, curious as a child, and then you question. And you must understand the power of design that you have in your hand. And I really enjoy architecture, because to me, you start out with a clean slate, blank piece of canvas, white canvas, and then you get to change things. You get to redefine things, and if you're bold enough, you will ask, why can't we have a shopping mall that works differently? So and if you think about airport, airports are always more or less the same, always air conditioned, all these issues, and passenger shops and all that. Then when you see the latest Changi airport, the Jewel, and you have a vortex, you have a waterfall going into the middle of the atrium, and inside the atrium there's a forest. So why not? So to answer Kelvin's question is, sometimes you can always say why, and most of the time the why will bring you to one idea, and you answer why we can't do that, why we can't do it. So we can do this, and how do we do it? So to me, why is usually the one that can trigger bright ideas. And you don't have to do research. It just get to, get your mind to do the thinking. Okay, Jason?
Okay. I hope that answered your questions, and thank you for your time. And we have next question from 𝐿𝐍𝐍𝐻𝐈. They say the new generation are lacking of creativity. How to define creativity? Is the project have to be decon or with crazy form only consider creativity?
I don't think form making is a criteria for creativity. So when we grade students' work, I have given A to students who have done just square boxes. One of the most memorable schemes from a student is she did 3 cubes for a sales gallery of different size. And when she told me of these 3 different size, then I gave her the idea, why don't you do one for S, one for M, and one for L, SML size. And then just spray along with that 3 different box. So the outcome was great, was inspiring, was fresh, as good as any practicing architect can beat any of the practicing out there first. So I thought, you see, that's a good example of how ideas need not be amazing forms. I always tell my students, you don't jump into organic forms plainly because it looks wow. What is it that you all call bombastic? Like look, like wow, the more complicated, the more you think it deserves an A. To me, I think that's not the right thinking. And the more you draw your sections, your footpath, the more complicated it looks, the more complex it looks, you reckon that shows complex, intense thinking. But I think it should always go back to fundamental experience of the space you design in your building. Okay, so form definitely not an indication of creativity, but the ideas, ideas that drive the space and how it changed the convention. That to me it will speak volume of a loud form. Okay, Jason, any other question?
I hope that answer 𝐿𝐍𝐍𝐻𝐈 questions. And any other question from the others? While waiting for the others, I have one question for you. Just now you said that the light to shine on the right path, right, and use the mock-up model to test it. Is it? So how many times of try and errors and mock-up in order to get the light to shine on the right path, on the right way?
Oh, okay. That's a good
Did you
question.
do some experiment or calculations?
The solution was quite straightforward, but a lot of careful study. You look at the empty site. The lawn was an empty site. Then you study the north point, okay, and then before you come up with the form, you go to the site. So that's why when usually before you do your design, before you start your design, your lecturers will always ask you to go visit site visit, right? Site analysis, and you do what's that SWOT SWOT analysis. So many times you take for granted it's just another set of template you get for your senior, and then you do your strength, your weakness, the opportunity, and your threat, and you care. But what you forget is you need to be there in person. You need to kind of like smell the site, breathe in the air, and watch and observe different time of the day. So answer your question on that model making, because the visits was done so many times that you can see the shadow patterns. This is before the form is out. You can tell because there are trees there. So we'll go in the morning and then we'll watch we observe, and we even observe the trees and the birds and all that. Then we deduce. You deduce and say, okay, I can see that the shadow covers here in the morning. Come again later, 2 o'clock. I see the shadow behaves differently because of the sun path movement. Then come again, 5 o'clock. Or sometimes we'll be doing site exam and we will stay until late, and then we observe. So it's a lot of observation. Now, so your site study, when you do SWOT, you may be doing a board presentation, but that instinct, that observation is the most important. Which is why I tell my students, every individual should have a different response, like a different sentiment. And if usually you do SWOT in a group study, right? And then, I mean, I know not everyone, but most students will just follow the group. Okay, all my group, everyone in my group say, okay, this is best for this. But everyone should have your own instinct reaction. You have to start this early. Like listen to what your heart says, listen to what your instinct says. Oh, I feel the building should be here. So answering your question, Jason, is when the form came about, it was really pre-calculated that the sun goes from right to left. And then the block is the longish side of the new annex do not face the evening or morning sun at all. Okay, so if you know your building science, your basic building science, and that's what the best orientation for a rectangular building would be. So after that, we already pre-calculated, then you say, okay, it should work fine. Right? And we tested in SketchUp, but again, models, I feel, is always the best. And you could leave it to your eye level, you can see, and that's where the linear skylight, during that mock-up model, the linear skylight was already studied. You can zoom into your mock-up model and see how the sun patterns happen. So so in a way, this is a lot of careful observation, careful testing, and then careful detailing, and again on site a lot of articulation, manicuring the end result.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I think that's all for the question. And once again, thank you very much, Architect Eu, and thank you all for joining us for today's online lecture.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoy it. So to keep in touch with our Masa and Instagram and Facebook for the upcoming events.
Okay,
and
see you
once
guys.
again, apologize on the technical issue earlier and the inconvenience caused to our speakers and our fellow participants. So until then, have a nice day and see you on the next event. Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye.
So Architect Eu, do you want to take a screenshot?
Oh, screenshot, okay. Are we still online or?
I think if they
Okay, just say, just look at the camera. I'm going to take a screenshot. So I hope it helps. What do you guys think? Does it help you in your next studio attempt?
I think I learn more because the question just now actually is my question for the project one, and I just submit my project one, and I had this question in mind.
Which part?
For the lighting condition, because we are studying on the light, how the light shine on the models, and some stuff.
Yeah. You sometimes you don't rely on software so much, because you'll be surprised the models that you saw. My students did like an A4 size only, and we will go under the sun. During my days, my studio lectures will ask us to do that, because that time we don't have so much of I don't think SketchUp exists during my time yet. So we will do actual models, and then we will squat down and lift up the model, and then we look at. Then my point is, despite all the handphone, smartphone, nothing beats old school model. Do a model, look and feel and imagine yourself in the model, and that itself, that's what I spoke about, empathy. Then you will be putting yourself as the user in the model. So that is one of the most important a skill that an architect must have, a designer must have. You must be able to put yourself into the user. Okay, if I sit here, would it be nice to read? Oh, this too glaring, you know, this too dark. So then you come back again as the designer to solve the problem. Then after that, you go in again to empathize again. Oh, if I'm a elderly mother, would I enjoy this? Grandma, would I enjoy this play? Oh, this too many steps. So it is a very very tiring process, but to me, that's what makes it all so exciting. And there's no straight answers, you see. So that's why architecture not for the faint-hearted. You guys enjoying your architecture so far? How are you?
Sorry, for me is I'm not sure because if we like include the like using the more advantage app, for example, the like rainbow color, how to calculate the temperature and how to calculate the sunlight in the buildings, it will be getting like higher marks for that. But do you really use the application like the to measure how much sunlight would get into the building and the temperature measurement and so on?
During design?
For example, the BIM, the BIM system and so on. Those are very advantage, yeah.
If you know how to use it well, I suppose it can help you. But there's nothing beats old school sharp observation. And then of course you want to talk about Lumen's calculation, then you ask the M&E engineer to do it. But in terms of how much light penetration come into your building, actually you don't really need all those advanced BIM or calculation, but you must have a good understanding of how light works with the building. You know the proportion when you draw your section, and then your overhang, and how deep your windows are, and how high your building is. So all this, if you understand how light comes in, then you should be able to do it without relying on software. I don't believe that you should throw your design into a software and then let the software tell you, okay, good to go. So that's what architects are unique. We are not replaceable by robots or AI. So try to go back to old school thinking and observing.
Because before that, I designed a building that I put all the like planting vertical and then the material, timber material and so on. So there's one question asking by another panel. Then he said, how to prove your building is green building? Where is your measurement? How you going to prove that? So you just say your building is green building. So how? But where is the proof? He asked me some questions.
Then how do you answer?
I'm not sure because I didn't use the measurement. Yeah.
I think that don't be intimidated by calculating how to measure a green building. It's just a GBI. If your studio, you guys will be taught GBI at one stage or another, either at third year or at fifth year. I don't know, but GBI rating tools very easy. No, just point for every item. You have visual connectivity to garden outside, you get 1 point. You have natural lighting, you get 1 point. You have natural ventilation, you get 1 point. So when the panel asks you what is your proof of green building, so the answer would be, I will go through my GBI rating and I will tell you. But so you need to read through first, more or less agak-agak more or less you will know. Okay, I can score certified. But you must be familiar with the GBI rating. But you ask me, it's not difficult to score certified level for any building, as long as you have natural lighting, natural ventilation, then collect rain and overhang, and if you know about heat gain. So all those are actually very basic passive architecture strategies that you have learned in your year one. And sometimes when you go third year, second year, then you forget your basics, right? Okay. Did we cover all the questions or all have
I
left
think
already?
we have one more question left. It's from Kelvin Yap. Beside the interesting play of light and shadow in the library, is there any design innovation on the ventilation parts in view of sustainability score?
Natural ventilation, is it?
Yeah, like any other design innovations other than the light and shadows?
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't go through full detail because that would be like 2-3 hour lecture. But now you ask, the washrooms are fully open, natural ventilated. And if you get a chance to visit Digital Library, then you go to the washroom facing the garden outside. And the issue with our climate is our washroom always tend to be stuffy, wet, because there's not enough sun. So for the washroom, we literally break all the walls. Of course, there are privacy screening done around it. But what you get is you go in, it's dry and it's you don't feel stuffy at all. So that's natural ventilation in the washroom. And what I didn't talk about is there's this tall roof Wisdom Street, and that was like creating a tunnel effect of natural ventilation. So that itself is a passive way of cooling the building. So you must understand, when the building is cooled naturally by this air movement, your aircon need not work so hard, you don't, because the building is already cool. So and that all that goes into being a bit more efficient in using the electricity. Okay, so I hope it helps. Short talk, and you guys have invited so many speakers with very exciting topics. I think nothing left for me to talk about.
But still, really thanks for you to join, for you to be our speakers, and thank you all other participants to join our online sections. So to keep in touch with our social media platform. So until then, have a nice day and see you on the next event.
Okay, take care everyone.
Okay.
Okay, stay safe. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.